You wanted the prophecy. This is your prophecy.
Peek behind the curtain. We're recording this on the same day we did the Baron Munchausen episode for the people in the future listening to this. I usually put the movie on in the background while we're recording. So I still have Baron Munchausen on, and we did not talk at all about Robin Williams as King of the Moon, which is a fantastic sequence in that movie.
Yeah, we fucked up.
Yeah,
we fucked up
a little bit.
Because he was one of the best to ever do it, frankly. So
and he works with Gilliam on The Fisher King, which is his follow-up to Baron Munchausen. And The Fisher King...
that might be my favorite.
Okay, yeah. Some people love The Fisher King. Some people hate The Fisher King. But as we all know, Fisher King is from Arthurian mythology. Was the man tasked with guarding the location of the Holy Grail.
So here's the thing about King Arthur adaptations and Arthurian myths in general. At least in terms of Hollywood reception, okay? This is very important. This is just something I think everyone needs to take a look at. They don't make money. They just don't make money.
Yeah.
I don't know why they keep doing them. I mean, I love these reinterpretations of myths, and I do think they've always brought something to the table, be it from a director's vision or emblematic of a period of cinema, right? I think even the last two King Arthur movies, this one, Legend of the Sword, Guy Ritchie's movie, and Anton Fuqua's movie from 2004, I think those are very different approaches to the King Arthur myth, whereas Fuqua's is more like, this is the real story. This is grounded. This is earthy. This is gritty. And Guy Ritchie's is very Guy Ritchie, but it's also, it was intended to jumpstart a cinematic universe of 6 films. I don't know why people keep greenlighting these movies. That being said, I hope they never, ever, ever stop, because we're here to talk about King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, one of my favorite blockbusters of the last decade, with my co-host, Matt Garingo. Right. I'm your host, Diego Crespo.
Yep, I'm Matt Garingo. Not here to talk about that.
I love this movie. I love it so much.
Yeah. This is... I'm not a hater, okay? I'll just say that right off the bat. I am not a hater of this movie. But this is like one of the most frustrating films, I think, of the last decade. And emblematic of where the industry was pre-pandemic in the worst way. Because I know why you love it, Diego. Because those parts of it...
Do you?
I love it too. There are 17 movies in this movie that I love individually. And I love none of them together. Because this was supposed to start some shared universe bullshit, and they had to get to that point. They decided the end point before they started. So anytime this movie threatens to get interesting, okay, we're done with that. We're going to the next thing. That's this movie for 2 hours. And Guy Ritchie's take on King Arthur of he would be a Guy Ritchie character, essentially, in the streets of London, raised in a brothel, running petty schemes, like trying to build, that pitch, I'm not someone who's like, I'm not super Guy Ritchie pilled, right? Like, I think Guy Ritchie's kind of like, he's a little more annoying than he is entertaining, in my opinion. That being said, he has made films that I love. I think Rock and Rolla is a great movie. And this is kind of Rock and Rolla with King Arthur. For about 10 to 15 minutes, I should say. And that sounds like one of the best movies I've ever heard of. I would love to have seen that movie. That's not what this movie is.
Aww.
There's so much great shit in this movie, stitched together by some fucking god awful shit. And it adds up to a movie that it's the worst kind of blockbuster, where it feels rushed and too long at the same time, which is like what so many movies of this moment felt like. And I don't blame Guy Ritchie for that. There's a man here who I blame for all of it because it is emblematic of two other films he worked on in the year 2017.
I didn't even consider this. I know who you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Akiva Goldsman, who is a producer on this movie, was also a producer on The Dark Tower, released the same year, which, did you know that The Dark Tower is directly connected to Arthurian myths?
I did not know that.
The guns that the gunslinger used, the barrels of the guns were made from a melted down Excalibur.
That's so fucking sick.
Books are great. None of that.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life.
None of that shit's in the movie. None of that shit.
Oh
is
my
in the movie.
God.
None of that's in the movie. So another Arthurian story, and was the writer and was supposed to oversee whatever was supposed to come after this. Transformers: The Last Night, which is also Arthurian inspired. Also 2017. He did 3 King Arthur things in 2017 and failed them all and tanked 3 franchises simultaneously.
That is kind of incredible. This is nothing against the man Akiva Goldsman, and I got to rebuttal like about half of what you said. Well, some of that is just fact. Also, you just reported some facts in there, so those aren't rebuttals. But I don't know Akiva Goldsman. I do not know any stories of him being good or bad person. But I do question how he can continue working when so much of what he touches turns out to be a disaster and poorly received or flat out bombs. I don't know. How do you do that? How do you come back from that?
Well,
I just don't know.
Well, I think I think what it really is one, he was a collaborator with Ron Howard. Ron Howard kept him going. He wins the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay.
That's right,
for A Beautiful Mind, working with Ron Howard.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Ron Howard keeps. Ron
not
Howard
true at all.
brings him over to like Cinderella Man, The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. So like that's his franchise, right? Those all made money, even if we don't like them, right? Those all.
Oh, I actually do kind of like Angels and Demons because it's just schlock.
Yeah. Angels and Demons is like the good one of that group. Shut up, Logan. Logan's back. My cat.
Oh, my cat.
And then, but I also think he is one of those people where, honestly, like when you watch these movies and they're you could say the same problem for all these movies, which is that it feels like they're really studio, like programmed. Like you can feel the studio's interference on a lot of these movies. And I think Akiva Goldsman is just someone when he's in the room will say yes to what the studio wants and make them happy. Like that's his priority, right? Like he's not there to write. He's not there to write a script that is telling some great epic of our times. He is not there to help the director. He's there to help the studio. And if you're helping the studio, they'll bring you back, right? You know. And I think that's his real. I think there are people like him that exist in the industry that are good with working with what the studio wants. Because I mean, Dark Tower is like probably the best example of it in just the torturous process. Also, Ron Howard has his name on the Dark Tower. He's one of the producers.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah. Dark Tower has like this weirdly long gestation process. Dark Tower also just straight up impossible to adapt. You just can't do it. And the movie hits on the one note, which if it is Akiva Goldman's thing, then it's like, okay, the reason he keeps getting work is because he has one brilliant idea for everything he works on, even if the rest of it doesn't work. But if whoever's idea this was is that the Dark Tower movie is technically a sequel to the books. You wouldn't be able to tell.
I remember that.
That is the one note of brilliance that the Dark Tower movie has. But aside from that, not much going on there. Did you know the 7th book in the Dark Tower series is called The Dark Tower?
Wow. No, I did not know. Oh, that's like Fast and Furious, where the 4th one is also Fast and Furious.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a interesting titling like that. I'm trying to look up. Yeah. Also, there's tons of Arthurian references to the Dark Tower. Including Mordred is in the Dark Tower.
Oh,
Who
okay.
is an evil sorcerer at the start of this movie. In some versions of the Arthurian myth, he's like an illegitimate child of Arthur, or Lancelot in some instances. But he's an evil warlock at the beginning of this movie. Whatever you can, whatever like that. I'm not here to talk about. I don't think the problem with this is that it didn't stick to the integrity of the Arthurian myth. You can literally rearrange those pieces in any order and tell a compelling story. Like it don't matter totally. But yeah, it's weird. I this movie bums me out, man. Like I don't hate it. Like I want it to be great, and I can see the great movies in it, and all of them failing to come alive. And I wish they had just picked one. And I think it would have. I think if they had just told Arthur as a street thug, and then maybe ended it with him removing the sword from the stone, which wouldn't be unheard of in Arthur adaptations. There have been other versions of the story that played out that exact way. It would have been better at launching a cinematic universe and would have been a better story.
You know, I don't know. I think that's a smaller budget level thing. I think you maybe have a point about it being like a more cohesive story. But even then, like, because this is like 6 ideas, kind of.
Yeah.
This is like 6 scripts put together and possibly reshot. I've heard conflicting things about stuff being reshot and how many times they reshot it or whatever.
No, there are moments,
obviously, everyone knows it was in production for a while.
Yeah, there are moments that you feel Guy Ritchie's absence on, in my opinion, especially towards the latter half of the movie.
Okay, I feel it in the introduction, actually. I feel like that was a lot more.
No, there's that. That just feels just like bad editing. I just think that is they just didn't know how to start this movie, right? Like, the movie should have just started with Arthur as an orphan being found. They didn't need any of that stuff with Eric Bana, right? Like,
yeah, you can have that. You can have, because Eric Bana plays Arthur's father, Uther, who him and his mother are killed when he's a child, and he's sent down the river like Moses and shit. You can start the movie there, and then cut to the credits from. I will say Daniel Pemberton's score. I think is a straight fucking heater.
Score's not bad. Score's pretty fun.
Insanely good music. It's very specific, I think. I don't think stuff sounds like this until he starts getting like a lot more score gigs in recent years. Like he does the Spider-Verse score now, and everyone is rightfully crazy about those as well. But I think like you start the opening a couple minutes later. I think all that. It's only like 10 minutes. It's not that long, but it feels a lot longer. And as much as I love this movie, like I definitely am always like, I got it too now. Okay, title card, now I'm in, And here's where I will not admit defeat. I do think the movie is kind of like a bunch of stuff like compacted together. I think Ritchie made the right decision to basically speed run a lot of elements of this movie. Now that does veer into like this movie is dangerously close to feeling like a trailer for future movies at some point. But I never felt that. I was actually shocked when I watched it, and I ended up really liking it for the first time because everyone kind of heard that this was like a disaster, and it's a huge bomb. It doesn't even make its budget back at the box office of $175 million, which is probably too much. But I think how they relay the information of like Arthur's upbringing, like they learn from like the first 10 minutes, like, okay, that took too long. How can we deliver this information to audiences and catch people up to speed for the story we really want to tell here? And I think they do a genuinely great job of realizing, okay, here's Arthur. He's found. Here's his upbringing. Here's what he learns. Here's what he's not capable of doing yet. Here's how he learns how to do that stuff. Here's who he is now. Movie start. Go. And it's like really impressive. There's a lot of montage sequences in this movie. And I know sometimes that maybe that feels like shortcutting, but I think it's actually really impressively dispersed in the movie. Not just for relaying information, but also Arthur's like journey in this movie. He has to confront like his past, like who he was, like losing his parents, having them killed in front of him as a child, right? And him being unable to like accept that. That is then like the metaphor of like wielding Excalibur and like having to hold that power, having to accept who he is, right? And it's like it's fragmented throughout the movie until, you know, the second half and the finale primarily, where he's like finally like kicking ass. And they definitely, Excalibur being like a super weapon is definitely a 2010s blockbuster thing, but I do kind of love it here. But anyways, I think that fragmentation makes the montage stuff play like almost eloquently. Like you, along with Arthur, are kind of like witnessing and remembering stuff in like this kind of fluctuating like emotional capacity. And I don't know. I think this is a fucking great movie. If it's not my favorite Guy Ritchie movie, it's in my top 3.
All right, look, shut the fuck up. All right. I'm in agreement with you on the montage early on. I like that first
Okay.
montage of him building his criminal empire, right? Like of him, the slow
I don't know. Not an empire. They're just trying to get by. I think that's the key element here.
criminal.
These are like
shut the fuck up.
like poor
Criminal
people
empire.
trying to
Shut the fuck up.
survive.
Shut the fuck up and let me finish my point. It's still building. He's like the characters from Rock and Rolla. Think of it that way. That's it. Where they're trying, they're like trying to do like a real estate deal and they get fucked. Like it's like sets everything in motion and that. Like they're that, yes. But like they are trying to build. He's trying to build a criminal empire, right? Like he is trying to build something. Now to what end? He doesn't even know what drives him, which is interesting. But I like the montage initially in a positive way. It does remind me of the pilot episode of Samurai Jack when he travels around the world learning from the different people, different skills, right? Like he goes to the different nations. You know the sequence I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
Done
of course.
entirely with zero dialogue, completely silent, just animation, just visuals. Really good. Reminded me of that. All that other shit about him getting over the death of his parents, about him not being able to accept that he is King Arthur, that he's Jon Snowing it for I don't want it. I hate all of that. I hate that that's what this movie's about. Because that's some boring ass shit for a fantasy film starring an adult man. If this was about the child Arthur, if this was The Sword and the Stone, the Disney film based on the book, I'd be much more open to that being what the story is about. Instead, it's about that and about 7 other things. you can actually feel the different movies it becomes throughout it. Uh, this movie, it's trying to be a superhero movie, is what it's being, and it gives him a boring superhero origin in the way that Batman is traumatized by the death of his parents, which is a boring origin for Arthur. Um, it's a, that's a studio no character motivation if I've ever seen one. Um, then when you mix it in with it becomes Gladiator for like a chunk in the middle, where it's like, oh, the people want you, Arthur, but I will kill you, and by killing you, I will show how powerful I am. And it's like Gladiator did a whole movie out of that, and that's a plot that's interesting and good, and kind of about the theater of violence and about you know where does power really lie, and you can use the the metaphor of Excalibur in that way. And so it's about he's got to form the Justice League. It's got to form the. It's like it's the Fantastic Four movie from a few years ago, but
Oh, how dare you!
with Arthur. It's got the same pacing. Um,
That is the most insulting thing I've ever heard you say.
and you know Arthur. It would be interesting to see him, you know, actually become a king, but because we already know the story so many fucking times, they just decide to not even bother. Uh, I don't know. I really would have liked. I wanted it to pick a fucking lane and stick to that because there are so many spots where it could have gone that would have been interesting enough, and instead it picks the most boring one, and it's like I just don't understand. It's so infuriating when you are teased with better movies constantly that it never sticks with. Um, which is just this. That's what this movie constantly was for me. And then by the time it starts to decide what it is, it's the second half of the movie, and I'm already tapped out. And I'm just like, there's a good chunk in the middle of like 30 minutes where I'm like, nothing is like I'm staring at a blank wall of a movie, and it's a shame. I think there is a good movie in here. There are multiple good movies in here. They should have picked one. They could have even started a cinematic universe better. I don't understand what they were thinking there. Like fame, like T.H. White's The Once and Future King, which is probably the most famous series of King Arthur books. They're the ones you've most likely read if you read them in high school. Uh, Dan Frank did a book report on them in elementary school and got me to read them. They're very good. Uh, Famously are four books that cover four different segments of Arthur's life. So you didn't even need to end this movie with the formation of the Knights of the Round Table. You could have just done the Sword and the Stone. That would have been enough, and you could have done a shared universe, and you would have had a more engaging movie. And its attempt to jump around, while the montages are occasionally done well, I am never confused watching them. It feels frustrating because I can feel the movie pushing itself into a box that was predetermined as opposed to actually letting this narrative ebb and flow in a way that feels engaging and character driven. Um, this is a checkbox movie. It had a list of things it wanted to hit. Guy Ritchie found spots to inject his Guy Ritchie-ness, and I think people walked away from this saying that that was the mistake. No, that is what makes the movie good. Is Guy Ritchie's little additions. It is, and he is not wrong for the material. It is not that he can't do a fantasy film. It is this it is what is breaking here isn't Guy Ritchie directing a fantasy film. It's Guy Ritchie directing a fantasy film that is being forced to be a superhero film. That's what's breaking it here. Um, and it's one where it will be forgotten in about 10 years. And someone will maybe look back at it and go, that chunk from this movie I liked. I want to make that movie. And maybe we'll do that finally. Um, but as it stands right now, this is not a complete film um, in an engaging sense.
I see. I do think at least that the film stands on its own in a way that a lot of these other franchise starters don't. Would you at least agree with that?
Well, how so?
It has, look, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can disagree with the pieces in there, but like you don't have to like, okay, now like we'll solve that in the next movie. Like every instance of conflict and idea is roundly resolved by the time we hit the credits of this movie. That is the lowest possible bar, but I do think that the movie at least like succeeds at that.
I guess I did find myself struggling to really give a shit what was happening by the end, so I'm not like a perfect judge
And
on
that's
it.
fine. That's fine. That's your wrong take.
And it, well, it's like all I can see in my mind's eye is the whole like round table thing, where it's like he's invented the table. Which doesn't Jesus do that in Passion of the Christ?
Does he? I haven't seen that movie in fucking
He
forever.
either invents the coffee table or like the chair.
I think he invents the coffee
Yeah, he
table on
does
that one.
something stupid like that in Passion of the Christ. Good fucking lord. But yeah, I just want to be like, so what is this supposed to be, Arthur? Why is it round? Where do you sit? And by that point, I'm like, fuck you. So unfortunately, that's the note it ends on. Like, that's a bad note for me. Because that is
No.
definitely sequel teasing, so I can't speak to it as being like the resolution of what the fuck you're talking about. But I'm sure when he defeated the Demon Knight, um, Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, I'm sure when he defeats him, there was resolution there. Um,
There is.
but
That's
uh,
funny that you mentioned that.
it was I didn't give a shit about that. Uh, It's weird. This does the thing of like uh he mentions like at moments that like Excalibur is wielding him more than he's wielding Excalibur, right?
Mm.
Um which is uh which is what the sword Stormbringer does in the Elric novels. And that's it's
Should
not
I read those?
as you should. And it is not presented as a good thing in those novels. And it's interesting that this movie settles on you need to nut up and shut up and fucking wield this sword, motherfucker. Like,
Like maybe that breaks my argument that it's standalone. Maybe that's something that would have been handled in a sequel.
hmm yeah, maybe. Well, Merlin isn't in this movie, which I can only assume is a sequel thing.
Yeah, there was rumors that it was Idris Elba at one point,
Uh,
and then he was like, "That was just a rumor."
no,
But
no, I'm gonna be the
yeah,
gunslinger in the Dark Tower.
yeah, no.
I've been the other Arthurian thing. Um, yeah, Merlin not being in this is kind of baffling, unless you consider that they were probably going to do Merlin Origins, right? Um,
Yeah, so there's some conflicting stuff. Like on the Wikipedia page, it says like there was going to be six like entry points, like six different Excalibur Camelot type like movies that would have crossed over. My understanding, and I can't seem to find this anywhere now, but my understanding just from talking and like old reports was that it was six King Arthur movies, and then each one he would have like met a different part of like the myths, you know. So like
mhm,
that's when you meet Merlin, that's when you meet Mordred again.
mhm.
I'm sure they would have done some weird remix of that too.
Morgan Le Fay, you know.
Yeah.
his son. I mean, well,
Maybe we even throw the Green Knight in there.
yeah, I mean, well, there could have been like him assembling the knights. I mean, because they all have their own stories. I mean, uh, the original Arthurian legends are a compilation of legends about different knights that were tangentially connected to Arthur, right? Like they all had their own stories initially. So,
Hmm.
um, but it's just I agree. I think there is if you want to do a franchise, you could do something with King Arthur. You really could. Um,
I agree.
and I think they jump way too ahead. They I don't know. I think they got oddly cold feet on like committing to it. But they also don't know how I don't think they ever figured out how to do the fucking dumb shared universe franchise thing because the other version of this that you are talking about would have ended on a like a Surf Dracula note, like where he surfs the last episode, right? Like uh,
Yeah.
that joke. But Arthur is a story where you can get away with that. Like that's like I said, the Sword in the Stone. I don't think he pulls the sword out at the end of the Sword in the Stone, but he's a child in that story, and he
Yeah.
doesn't grow into the king, and that's mostly Merlin turning him into different animals, right? And and
Yeah.
and I guess that's too Disney, right? Like, although wouldn't that have been fun to watch him be like fucking this street thug, and then Merlin shows up, he's like, "Gotta be king," and he's like, "I'm not going to be king," and then he turns him into an animal, and he's like, "If you learn how to be this animal, I'll fucking turn you back," and just keeps fucking with him the whole time.
Hmm.
Wouldn't that have been fun?
I mean, that could have been its own interesting thing, but I do like that there's this whole like the maids are almost like Jedi in this world where they're
Can we talk about
like,
the conflict
oh,
of
like
can we,
the mages.
yeah, can we talk about the conflict of this being the same conflict as that Dungeons and Dragons movie?
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah. So go fuck
Oh
yourself.
no, no, no,
Go
no!
fuck
Don't put that
go
on.
fuck
Don't
yourself.
no, don't
Fuck
do
every,
that to
I'm
me.
flipping two fingers right
No,
now. Go fuck
no,
everyone can go fuck
no.
themselves. It's the same fucking
Yeah,
conflict.
but
The mages and the
this is
non-mages
Citizen
used to live
Kane
in
compared to
peace.
that.
They used to live in peace, and then the bad, and then oh, there's another guy who wants to. Oh, the clearly evil guy ended up being evil, and
Yeah, but they jump right to that. Like
oh, that makes it better.
it's yeah, it does, especially when it's Jude Law
I do find it funny that Jude Law does seem
as
to.
Vortigern.
Yeah, Jude Law at times seems to be trying to give a genuine performance, and then the movie's like, "No, you're comically bad guy." Like,
I don't know. I do. I mean, this is your thing about like. There's a bunch of interesting ideas in here. I think they come together much better,
mhm,
significantly better than you do. But I do like the element that like Arthur kind of gets like allies from everywhere, and he's like, why be enemies when you can be friends? And then Jude Law is just like his supporting cast like diminishes throughout the entire movie. Like it's very like standard, but it's like it's a good juxtaposition between the two. He's like literally killing his own kid like in his second to last scene
mhm.
to remain like powerful or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, that is like a good like I like that villain. He's not like the best villain of 2017. That would be Kylo Ren
Mhm,
facing off against late King Arthur. I mean Luke Skywalker
mhm.
in The Last Jedi. But Ryan Johnson did also say like that was a big inspiration for Luke's treatment in that film, and that's why that film's great. And Mark Hamill gives an incredible performance in there, even if he doesn't recognize it.
I mean,
That's
I
okay
mean,
too, you know.
well, also like King Arthur's like famous last battle, like some versions of the story is against his own illegitimate son with Morgan Le
Yeah,
Fay, his
I mean
half
it's in
sister. Um,
yeah it's in
did we did we
Excalibur,
talk
the John Borman
did we
one.
talk Excalibur on here, or did we just talk Excalibur when we did the Justice League episode?
I'm pretty sure we talked about it when we did the Justice League episode because I hadn't seen it before that,
Yeah,
and then that's when we discovered like, oh, this is Zack Snyder.
yeah,
This movie is him.
yeah, and a much better movie, by the way. Uh, but hey,
Then this,
Excalibur, yes.
I don't know if I'd agree.
I don't. All right, I'm just gonna look on Wikipedia right now. I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. When I see a King Arthur movie I've seen, I will say if it's better than this movie.
Okay.
All right, I've seen Camelot. Camelot's not a good movie, but the musical is good. I like the musical more than this. I don't like the movie more than this. Excalibur, better movie. First Night, worse movie. Arthur and Merlin, haven't seen it. Green Knight, better movie. King Arthur, worst movie. The Last Legion, worst movie. The Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. I'm sure one of those is at least better than this. Book is certainly the book is certainly better. Bunch of ones I haven't seen. Bunch of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, better than this. Knight Riders, the George Romero motorcycle night movie, better than this. The Fisher King.
Okay, well, hold up. That movie is incredible.
Yes. The Fisher King.
That's not a fair comparison.
The Fisher King, better than this. There's actually something called Merlin the Return, which I just find very funny. The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Well, it's got Nick Cage, but it's also not very good. Probably on par.
No.
Transformers: The Last Night. Better.
Don't. I'm pro The Last Night.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get there.
I can't quite
get there.
The Kid Who Would Be King. Better.
That might be better. Yeah.
Looks like there was
that's a good movie.
Looks like there was about 3 Bugs Bunny animated King Arthur parodies. I'm sure they're better than this. Sword in the Stone. People see that as a lesser Disney movie. I actually think that's one of the better Disney films of that era. So that's a better movie. Quest for Camelot, worse. Shrek the Third, god awful.
That is kind of the plot of that movie, huh?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I forgot.
Yeah.
Well, here, hang on, time out. Sword in the Stone, that was 1965?
63.
63? You say it's better than that. What else was coming out then? It's like Jungle Book, Aristocats.
I think that's considered part of the later era Disney stuff, like when Walt starts focusing more on live action and people kind of dismiss those movies. I mean, because you have in there like, look, I think we probably are in disagreement, but it's like 101 Dalmatians. Not a great film. It's fine, right? But not a great film.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I cannot really attest to that one.
I think we love the Jungle Book. I think we're both in the Jungle Book camp, which is the last one Walt Disney works on. Aristocats, bad. Robin Hood, great.
No, everybody wants to be a cat.
Yeah, but it's a bad movie.
Don't make me rewatch it and see I'm wrong.
It's a pretty bad movie. Sorry.
Fuck. All right. Yeah, Robin Hood's a banger.
Robin Hood. Which here's something I would genuinely say. If I was like gonna do a live action Disney remake, I would do the Fox Robin Hood movie. And
that's the craziest thing you've ever said. You've been on a streak today.
And I would do some fucking like here's the thing, they would never let you do it because they'd want him to look like a photorealistic Fox, and I'm like, fuck that, make him look like a cartoon, but do it CGI. And then I would just do an Errol Flynn style Robin Hood movie, but with the Fox.
Okay, all right, you got something there.
I think it would be fun.
Hey, it could be fun. I mean, you also get the furry money.
Furries are about
and clearly with Zootopia that would do bank.
Are about to go mainstream, so we got to get on this early. In the next decade, furries will go mainstream.
Okay.
Then get Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which is good, but it's also a compilation of a bunch of shorts they had done, right? So it's kind of like indicative of where the brand was heading. The Rescuers, bad movie. Fox and the Hound, bad.
Whoa.
Sorry.
No, I'm not even against that. I just remember it being too sad for me to watch.
It's too sad, and it doesn't really earn it. It's a really lame movie about racism. The Black Cauldron, I think bad, but that's like also like that was like a disastrous production, right? Like I think a lot of people give that movie like some appreciation because it was. I think people give the Black Cauldron the appreciation Sword in the Stone should get. I think Sword in the Stone was Disney's first attempt to kind of do a more, outside of their wheelhouse type story, right? And Black Cauldron They just didn't work. And then Great Mouse Detective, and then shit kind of turns around for Disney, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think like Sleeping Beauty is kind of usually considered like the last of the great Disney films from that first run, and then
Hmm.
it's Little Mermaid is when people are like Disney's back, bitches, and we can
I
just
could see it. That's like a 30-year gap.
yeah
Yeah, I that makes a lot more sense now.
yeah
I
yeah.
see what you're saying.
And it's also like Sword in the Stone
Yeah.
is
I
done
mean,
like
also like those two,
mhm,
like Sleeping Beauty and Little Mermaid. I just need to mention like those two also like make it on the top 5, top 10 Disney lists like
yeah yeah.
constantly.
Mhm.
I think Sleeping Beauty is probably the best Disney movie ever,
Sleeping Beauty just
but
looks
that might be debated.
incredible. Like
It's
it,
fucking unbelievable.
yeah, it's like
Like genuinely, I cannot believe I'm looking at it
yeah,
as I'm watching it.
it's an unbelievably great looking movie. I'm trying to think of what now that we're just here. I'm trying to think of like what like are the greats for me. I kind of put Fantasia in a different class. Like anything that's like shorts, like I kind of
Mhm.
put in a different thing. So
Yeah,
I want to
like I probably like throw on Fantasia the most even now.
yeah
Like it's just great, like inspiration wise too.
yeah.
But like yeah, I feel like it is kind of a class of its own. It doesn't.
Mm,
It's not that it doesn't stack up. I would put it in my top 5
mm,
Disney's for sure. But like, yeah, very different
mm.
sort of experience at least.
I don't think all right. I think I have a top four in no particular order, which are Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Robin Hood, Mulan, and then I guess to jump back one, I would probably put Aladdin in there. So that'd be five. Aladdin or
Hmm.
Sleeping Beauty. Well,
Are you not a Tarzan head?
I am not. Tarzan's that weird era.
Okay.
Tarzan's fine. I'm not like a hater. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, the Phil Collins music is an interesting choice.
The Phil Collins music makes that movie essential cinema,
Uh,
and I'm not even joking. I think the movie's very good. I think that one is just gonna hit like me forever because I saw it too much as a kid.
uh-huh.
But that music fucking like just takes me right fucking. I will cry listening to that music
All right.
because of my connection to that movie
Okay.
now.
Okay. It
um,
wasn't it wasn't my totemic one, like I think
hmm.
Aladdin was just that for me. I think for a lot of kids Aladdin is, like Aladdin and Lion
Yeah.
King. And so Lion King didn't make my top five, but I don't think it would make my top five. Um so
It might make my. I have to think about this more,
yeah.
but like,
What's the one like that like you give a pass to where you're like, it's not great, but I do love it.
let me think. It might be Aristocats,
Okay.
just because of the. Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't seen that in so fucking long, so maybe that would
I
like not hold true.
I would recommend just looking
Um,
up the song "Everybody Wants to Be a Cat" because I know you remember the part in it that's really good, and there's a part in it that you very clearly do not remember from that song.
okay, okay. Um,
Because that the part with the I do think it's like one of the like best animated Disney moments is the piano falling through the floor as they're falling,
mhm.
playing music. That's just a great visual. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
uh,
God, which one? Then let me see, because I'm pretty sure it's the racist bit, right? You're talking
yeah,
about.
there's a racist bit in the Aristocats.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's coming back a little bit. God, what? Fucking maybe. I don't know if this would be my pick, but just like looking at the list right now, like Pocahontas is probably the best animated movie of that run that they have in the
Like
'90s.
in terms of
Um,
the animation.
the animation, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then like the actual like movie is like not that
Yeah,
good.
it's kind of a disaster.
It's kind of a bad movie
Yeah.
in my opinion. Oh, you know what? Fucking Hercules. I love Hercules.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
was
one.
thinking Hercules too. It's like Hercules or
Yeah.
Hunchback, right? Like where
Yeah.
they're both deeply they're What was that?
Have I told you the story? Like Hunchback is technically the first movie I ever saw in theaters, but I was so young I don't remember
Oh,
it, right?
okay. That's a fucking
And
wild one to
and
go first, too.
yeah. And my parents were like, "Oh my god, did we like just fuck up like our
Mm.
son? Like, is he gonna have
How
memories of this movie
how's that?
that
How's
is
that
so like
Catholic?
aggressive?"
How's that Catholic guilt going?
Yeah, maybe they had a point and didn't realize it at the time, or they did realize it and I didn't realize it until later in life.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, that
Um.
movie
Yeah.
that you if you don't have to be a Catholic. If you saw that one first, you got Catholic guilt energy for the rest of your life.
Yep. And then just as like millennials, I have big soft spots for Atlantis and Treasure
Yeah,
Planet.
yeah. But I didn't want to be like,
Imperfect
yeah.
movies,
But I
but
didn't
like
want.
I fucking really admire them.
I didn't want to be like one of those guys being like my favorites. Like people who think they're like fucking cool for picking those ones. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but Treasure
yeah.
Planet.
Definitely not my top five.
Treasure Planet though was actually growing on me. I kind of remember Treasure Planet being a bad movie that I liked, but I rewatched it and I'm like, it's actually good. Like it's just not great.
Yeah, I don't think either of them are bad. To be
No, I
clear,
agree, but
I
like,
want to get that out there.
but I had initially thought that like Treasure Planet was a bad movie that I enjoyed. Like we have plenty of those, especially
Mhm.
animated films. But now I'm like, no, it's good. It's just not great. What about Dinosaur?
I remember watching that in
I did.
theaters with my cousins.
I think I saw every Disney movie from Hercules to Treasure Planet in theaters. So I think Brother Bear was like the first one I didn't go see. So
You're not missing out.
I have memory. No, that's a bad one. Phil Collins, I think, also did the music for that.
Yeah, but no one remembers,
Yeah,
so it doesn't
well, I
matter.
think hey, I think it maybe is a testament to the power of Tarzan because like you would think people would at least remember the music, but nope. Uh,
Mm.
isn't Joaquin Phoenix the Brother
Son of
Bear in
man
Brother
into
Bear?
the sky. Oh my God, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't walk away from that project? No, last minute.
Oh, oh.
Oh.
Well, not
Joker 2
he
Folly Ado
didn't
in
walk.
theaters
He
soon.
didn't walk away, Diego. It wasn't that kind of bear.
Whoa.
Oh, we
Whoa.
tell jokes here. We tell jokes.
Oh.
We tell jokes.
Holy shit. That was funny.
Fucking coward,
Oh,
Joaquin
goddamn.
Phoenix, you fuck.
That fucking pissed me
I
off so
can't wait for
much.
the imaginations of children though to be reignited with Moana 2 and Zootopia 2.
Hey, Moana.
Hey, I love Moana.
That's a
You know what
yeah.
guess what? I love Milan. You know what I didn't need? Milan 2.
Yeah. You
So
know what's fucking pissing me off though? Moana, Frozen. You could totally make those killer
you
franchises.
could. They don't know what they're doing though.
You could do
They
it.
couldn't.
You could do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, they decided to jerry rig. I mean, speaking of productions that jerry rig like several scripts into a single one,
Yeah.
like Frozen 2, a movie I do like for a good chunk of it. And Moana 2, which was a TV show. It's like, God, you people are not interested in making movies anymore.
Frozen 2 should
You
have
just
been the
want content.
easiest layup of all time.
They have all the fucking
Yeah.
pieces. It's the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes that are like disastrous. But everything else I think is really strong in that movie.
Sure.
Surprisingly.
But you know what I would have just done and saved everyone a lot
Made
of
it good all the way through.
no, I would have saved everyone a lot of time. You know how she like freezes things?
Mm-hmm.
Have her meet someone who's like fire. There.
No, because if it's a woman, what if the people think they're gay?
Eh,
And you can't have that in movies.
that's becoming a problem right now, apparently. Um, you fucking cowards at Disney. Uh-oh.
They are cowards.
Got
They
it.
don't need to be.
Right. Look, it's gonna happen at one point. They're gonna do a gay Disney film. Like how? Like when do you think?
I want to say I want to give it 10 years.
Yeah, I want to say but that even seems charitable. It might be, but like who could usurp them though, right? Um,
DreamWorks apparently.
oh, did DreamWorks do that? Did I miss something?
No, just
Mhm.
they seem to be like trying shit
Yeah,
still.
DreamWorks still tries stuff.
Like between like Wild Robot, which looks like it's just gonna make me cry the whole
Yeah,
time, so
yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna watch that in theaters.
Mm.
And then what did they do recently? They did something else, not just Puss in Boots, but they did something else that was like really well received. I don't know, but
I'm,
they look like they're trying
but
shit.
I'm talking a princess story where the princess is gay. Like that's it. Like
Hmm.
one of these days, someone's got to do it. I think we're there as a culture. Um, and so Disney not doing it, it's kind
It's
of
money on the table.
it's well, I'm not sure. I do think that because there's also like an insanely powerful homophobia movement right now that calls anything that's gay grooming, right? I can see why
Hmm.
they are afraid to touch that third rail, but and also they've lost so much goodwill that like the people that, 10 years ago would have embraced it for being progressive and ignore the other things Disney does aren't going to do that right now.
Hmm.
Um, so something to think about. Um, so if I did King Arthur, I would just have Arthur fuck Lancelot.
Okay.
Which I think
Yeah, that seems about
I
right.
actually think that does happen does that happen in Did you ever read The Mists of Avalon?
No, should I?
Um oh God, I don't know how to answer that. Uh well, because all right, Mists of Avalon is it's you could it's a feminist retelling of the King Arthur story from the
Oh,
perspective
okay.
of Morgan Le Fay. It was made into a miniseries that I saw on the Sci-Fi Channel. Uh, Led me to read the books. Very influential on me growing up. Um, it's written by a woman named Marion Zimmer Bradley. Uh, uh, who got canceled for the worst thing you could get canceled for. Or second to
Oh
worst
shit.
thing you could get canceled for, which is knowing that her husband was up to the worst thing you could get canceled for
Ah shit.
and condoning it. Yeah, came out
Ah.
after she had died.
Fuck.
She died in like 1990, like just a few years ago. Was very devastating. Um, and I have not, obviously, I have not reread the book since then. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe that that is a book where there's a lot of you know sexual politics in it. Brings a lot of that. It's very much about the kind of Christianity versus paganism elements of the Arthur story, mixed with like a more feminist retelling. It's honestly like very like kind of like Game of Thrones and like the women not having as much rights, like that they're bargaining chips in terms of stuff like that. In it, Morgan Le Fay and Arthur sleep
Mm-hmm.
with each other without ever even realizing that they are half siblings. And I believe at one point Arthur he's failing to have he can't get his wife pregnant and knows that she's having an affair with Lancelot, so just brings Lancelot into the bedroom with all of like they all three get together in bed. And the logic being that if the heir is produced
Oh.
in bed is still technically the heir regardless of who the father is. I believe that's a scene in that book. So it's an interesting book. I don't know how I can really talk about it today, considering those elements
Mm-hmm.
outside of it, right? Like I wonder if I reread it now and I see a
Yeah.
lot of the sexual politics very differently than I did at the time. Um, but it was an early read for me in terms of like getting into fantasy stuff. Um, so it's a frustrating one. It's a heartbreaker. in terms of that element. I guess if you're gonna read one, like I think T.H. White's books still hold up. Have you read them? The ones in Future King? I think they still hold
No.
up. Um,
Mm-mm.
like that those do the whole Arthur thing. It's 4 books, you know. Sword in the Stone, like I said, Sword in the Stone was the
Mm-hmm.
one that was adapted into the Disney film. Um, and yeah, I have all this stuff here about the history of King Arthur. I'm just going to. I don't know how much of it is relevant. I think we've jumped around enough to talk about it. Other than that, like it starts like more as like a Welsh story, as like a Celtic story, and like the British Isles have such a weird history of being like occupied and conquered by different peoples, right? That influence the weird mythology it's
Mm-hmm.
based on. You know, the Romans ruled Britain for about 400 years, right? Uh, yeah,
Yeah, so then that's how you get the
yeah,
Roman
yeah,
interpretation of the
and then
myth
but
too,
then you
and
also have shit like Stonehenge, which goes back to like 20 BC, like like fucking like ancient shit that according to some legends, were built by Merlin. Um,
yeah, yeah. I was like, all
yeah,
right, sure,
early
whatever.
earliest
Interpretation, myth,
versions
all that stuff is
of
fun.
the Arthur story have no Christian elements to them. There is the quest for the Grail. It's just a Grail in the initial version of it. Percival's and the story of the Grail. It is not the Holy Grail. That was added later. Um, and then different cycles kind of like start condensing the different stories, right? And then if you want to talk about some stuff that's parallel with politics,
Mm-hmm.
Edward the First worked very hard to kind of make Arthur a hero of England as he waged war with the Scots, right? Edward the First, for those who don't know, the villain of Braveheart.
Uh,
Um, and I think Braveheart though makes some like insane claim that he was like a pagan or something like that, which isn't true at all because I think that's crazy Mel Gibson shit that's in there. Um, and so you get Edward, you get Henry kind of being like the good king of England, like everyone kind of remembers, and Henry is famously like was the young king. He kind of has a very Arthur like journey, at least historic sources, and then legends like the Henriad, that Shakespeare wrote. That's Henry.
mhm.
If you don't know, um, people keep messaging me on Letterbox. I mean on Discord. I have to mute them. Sorry. Uh, yeah. Uh,
It's okay.
Also, a lot of the versions. So, like after the Norman conquests of England, it's a lot of French writers writing these myths. So like King Arthur's actually like a French myth mainly. Like most of the sources are French, which is interesting, which is partly what inspires J.R.R. Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings because of his belief that England didn't really have a true fantasy myth, that King Arthur didn't count. So like that's his mm,
That's so funny because that's kind of like that environment is where we contribute like a lot of like fantasy elements and like myths from. Like when they do like a fantasy movie, like let's say
mm,
pulling one out of a hat, that doesn't mean we're going to talk about it. Warcraft, when there's not like a bunch of like English accents in the film, people are like, well, it's not very fantasy,
yeah.
and it's like, well, it's one, it's not real. Two, it's like, yeah, it's they're not the only place that has it.
Yeah, so it
We just
is. I mean,
attribute
but
so
also
much to
we do
that
the same thing
region
with Roman films, where we
and
give the
that
Romans
former
British
empire.
accents. Like it's just a weird thing we do.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I
like
get it. Like the British accent does sound very nice sometimes. Um, they did colonize literally
yeah,
everyone.
they did
Yeah,
colonize
so
everyone at one point.
uh,
So,
the mother tongue, I guess maybe that's what it is psychologically.
ugh,
That's what's fucking with their. That's what's fucking with our brains. Hey, I'm trying
don't,
to figure
ugh,
it out.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, no, I know.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not wrong for suggesting it. I'm just
But
saying, like, I
yeah,
hate that
like a lot
that
of the
it's like
sources
true.
for it's just interesting that a lot of the sources for King Arthur are mainly French. Um and also the the version that condenses most of the stories we know, like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight from the 14th century, something like that, is La Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. Who we don't actually know much about Thomas Mallory's life. There's a lot of speculation as to who he was. Uh, he condenses the narrative into the version we mostly know today. So most Arthur sources go back to that. And then Once Future King kind of piggybacks off of that and is probably the most populist version of it. But it's interesting. Do you know when Le Morte d'Arthur is published? All right, it's published in the 15th century in
No, I don't.
1485. Now, something very important happens in 1485. The death of Richard III, leading to Henry VII, which brings about the end of the War of the Roses and the establishment of the House of Tudor, which lasts until Elizabeth I. So, Richard III,
Ah.
by history, has been cast as a villain, right? You know this. And the War of the Roses was very much about like who has the right to the throne. So it is interesting that a story about who is the rightful king kind of becomes popular and takes shape right at this moment when there is a succession crisis, right? Like it's almost like stories have political motivators that that you can trace this shit all the way back to that. So you have to imagine this is a story that was essentially written at a time when a lot of people thought the king, Richard III only ruled for like 3 years and many people thought he was illegitimate and a tyrant. And so it would make sense that a story about Arthur, who was just a normal one of yous, he was raised like one of you guys, you know? He's an average Joe. He worked his life. He knows business. He'll run the country like a business. He'll have a round table like a business. That it would take shape during that. It's just kind of interesting. And maybe something this movie missed on being a year after the election of Donald Trump.
Maybe, you know what? If I can interject though, I do think there's actually something here about like it's not an overtly like aggressive political film by any means, and I would argue none of Guy Ritchie's movies are really. And like, look, Guy Ritchie has like
Actually,
a very like.
I'm not sure. Guy Ritchie seems to have some more politics than I think you're giving him credit. I'm not sure if they're
No.
fully.
I'm gonna make a point that he does have them. It's just we don't like really consider him a political filmmaker. You and I have watched Wrath of Man, and you and I were both taken aback by holy shit, where the fuck did that come from? That's the angriest movie I've seen in years.
Yeah.
And that is a movie that sort of hates money, basically. Yeah. There's more going on there, but that is it is not like a fervently anti-capitalist movie or anything, but it's like not all these people's lives are worse or have been ended by the end of that film because of the pursuit of wealth. And that is crazy that movie's just right after Aladdin. That's the movie he does immediately after his biggest paycheck ever, guaranteed, right? But I do think, and Ritchie has like, again, this very like sort of like masculine bravado. He was on like the Joe Rogan podcast. I got questions for sure.
A lot of people have been on Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna hold it against them.
But all of his movies, for the most part, they have like a pretty well-rounded cast, and like his Knights of the Round Table, like Lancelot's not in this movie, for example, but Percival is, and I have questions. I mean, like I would be like, hey, maybe don't throw that guy in there so early, but whatever. Like it's like Jamon Hanso. Tom Wu plays a guy named Kung Fu George, which maybe complicated, but like who is like a badass in the movie.
Could have just called him George.
Could have just called him George and have him train Arthur still. Like that's or whatever. Kingsley Ben-Adir, who's kind of coming up in the world. He plays Tristan, known as Wetstick primarily for the movie. I like that. Like all the knights, like they're not all knights. They're like people from like the streets that Arthur grew up with, and like there's like an angle there, you know, and I think that happens a lot in Guy Ritchie's movies.
No, he has definitely a fascination with like street tough type characters, right? And most of his street toughs are like essentially like pirate type
Hmm.
characters in the like fantastical version of it in the popular where like pirates like they skirt the law there but they're like kind of democratic, right? Like Robin Hood-esque figures. It's like stealing from the rich giving to the poor,
Hmm.
um and shit like that. Like a lot of his street toughs have that vibe. They're fantasy versions of street thugs, right? Like they aren't real. He's never been going for that, so like I'm not holding that against
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
but he definitely has a sort of fascination with that kind of world from like it's funny like this might sound insulting but it's like a very childish perspective on stuff. It's kind of like if Tarantino just kept rewriting True Romance
Hmm.
over and over again, right? Like it's he's kind of Guy Ritchie's been doing
Yeah.
his version of that. I'm not saying he's doing exactly True Romance, but his version of that over and over again. Because I mean, this is his interpretation of fucking Sherlock Holmes too, right? Like, what is he? He's a street tough, right? And then
Yeah.
yeah, and in a
Hmm.
weird way,
He gets
what
into like
makes him make
fights.
sense for Aladdin, right? Like that's what led him to someone being like he would be good for
Yeah.
Aladdin. Now that movie doesn't work, but that's probably not his fault. Um, he's bringing a lot of that to King Arthur. It's not there, right? King Arthur famously in the story is raised as a commoner, and this is a common thing in a lot of stories about good kings where they understand the peasant folk, right? Like this is a recurring element, and it's a recurring element in our
Mm.
politics. I mean, Donald Trump got elected president because even though he is a fucking billionaire, was able to present himself as like a working person, right? That he's not a political elite. He's one to use, and we see that happening all over. If any reactionary right now that has any power has the same narrative as being from the streets in a way, right? Like it's a dangerous thing to play with a little bit. And I think Guy Ritchie he gets so fucking close because I think part of it is that him being raised by sex workers is such a good touch that like I want him to do more with that and they kind of just forget about it at a certain point. And it like but that is a very like okay, that is a genuine from the streets type thing, and none of the I actually gotta give him credit. None of the like sex worker stuff was played as like sometimes you do that and it's like just an excuse to get sexy women into the movie, right? And this movie doesn't really do that. Like it does kind of
Hmm.
portray like that's actually hard living, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Uh,
You say they forget about it, but they end up being like
mm,
one of them, like the main one who looked after him ends up getting killed before the big gladiator
mm.
moment you're talking about, where you feel like the movie kind of underbakes that too. And like the movie doesn't lose track of them, it just becomes occupied with
Mhm.
Arthur's narrative, and he became separated from the streets for a while. As like these knights are like, now you got to do this. And he's like, I don't want to do this, right? Which I know you have a problem with as well, and I actually quite like that touch. And then he has to eventually reconvene with his friends on the street and the people that raised him, and he ends up having to save. Along with the other peasants in the film, the sex workers in the finale with the big tower and stuff
Tower.
like
Oh,
that.
speaking of the tower, that you can actually trace back to one of the earliest um, Arthur stories, the Little Grail cycle, which is one of the by Robert de Boron from the 12th century. I'm pronouncing all these names wrong. Um, he is famous for he Christianized a
It's
lot
fine, they're dead.
of the Arthur stuff. He brought Christianity to it, including to the origin of Merlin. His version of Merlin um, is that he was initially sent by a council of demons as their agent on earth to undo the works of Christ. Um, uh, but ends up working with Arthur, if I understand correctly. And that is where the story of the usurper king Vortigern comes in, and he's building his tower and stuff like that. That comes from that. That's from the 12th century.
See, Guy Ritchie, he knows how to pick them.
Sure.
Not always. That is objectively not true.
Yeah.
But like,
I'm
but
just
then
saying, there's so much here that is it's all half baked. Like there's too much here, and none of it is made into anything edible. Like not to make a food metaphor, but like it's. I'm sitting here having to imagine the better films. It's not, and you never want that from your movie. You never want me to sit here and have and be like, wow, that that's really interesting. Or when it's not doing that, it's making me think of better movies that have adapted the Arthur story, like Excalibur, like The Sword and the Stone. Um, and that's the challenge, is that you're always going to have this. And like I said, the initial thing of him being like a street tough, like that. Really, Guy Ritchie would have knocked that out of the fucking park. That would have been a great movie. You still could have brought in more fantasy elements. I'm not saying it had to have been like this grounded realist story that had no magic whatsoever. You could have integrated the stuff better. But instead, I feel like I'm flipping through channels of like different King Arthur movies and missing important context and just not enjoying it at all. Um, yeah, it's
well, here some final things as we wind down on this. Then, to go back to the women of this film, I think who Annabelle Wallis from James Wan's masterpiece *Malignant*. She kind of has like a lead role in this, but like I don't even remember her name.
Her name is just
like it's
Mage.
just.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the other woman.
No. And I'm gonna get back to her right now too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Maggie is her name. And a little underwritten to say the least. There, I'm gonna give you that. Your point about like Guy Ritchie like being the right fit for this, and like would you argue he had like good instincts for like what the material was, at least? Because I would, especially with what I'm about to say.
I think I do think I think people, when they ding this movie, they say it's his fault, and I don't ding him. I think he was the right choice. I think he could have brought this somewhere good. I think it's a movie where, like a lot of movies of this era, where they had an endpoint picked before they started, and the movie was written to fit that. And does it function like a movie? I'm going to say yes. But is it engaging in a movie? Should be. I'm going to say intermittently. And as a result, it's ultimately a frustrating movie.
I'll take it.
I think, like, if you look on Letterboxd, I did not give it 1 star. I gave it 2.5, because the stuff in it, there are sequences that I like. There are stretches of the movie that I like, but it is literally like 5-minute stretch I like, 5-minute stretch I hate, 5-minute stretch I like, 5-minute stretch I hate, constantly for 2 hours, and it's a fucking bumpy road, man. Like it just. I just wish they could have picked a lane, because or make this like a 3-hour epic. I guess that's the other version of this, is to do a 3-hour version of this where you could do all this stuff in a satisfying way, but it's a weird middle version of it. So,
all right, well, another note just on the main female lead, the mage played by Astrid Burgess Frisbee. That character's name was initially Guinevere.
yeah.
That was initially Guinevere, and then there's supposed to be a romantic angle with her and Charlie Hunnam. And to Guy Ritchie's credit, he was like, "This isn't working. We can't do this in this movie. There's not enough space for this." And apparently, he had to fight very hard for that simple decision, which is a good decision to when a director or someone recognizes this isn't working, we have to do something else or cut it entirely.
Do you think it had anything to do?
That is good priorities.
Do you think it had anything to do with the lack of any chemistry between that actress and Charlie Hunnam?
Maybe, but like
she's not very good in the movie. No offense.
She or he?
She.
Okay.
I don't
Well, she doesn't have a lot to do.
Yeah, she doesn't. But also when she's talking, I'm like, my eyes start glazing over, and I'm like, what's happening?
Aww.
Yeah, poor fucking Charlie Hunnam though, man. Like, just what a uh, like
I
because
think he's really good
no,
here.
I like him, and he is good here in the 7 versions of Arthur he's asked to play. Um, but it's like this is the end of his Pacific Rim, Crimson Peak, Lost City of Z, King Arthur 4 movie run, all bombs. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
and uh,
Fuck.
yeah, and this weird point for Richie because he does Sherlock Holmes, which I really like his first Sherlock Holmes movie. His second one has a lot of the problems I feel like this movie has, which is kind of fascinating. And then he does The Man from Uncle, which is actually pretty good. Uh,
Yeah, that one definitely got a bad rap, which I
yeah,
was on the giving end of at the time. I like that movie a lot now.
yeah. I think it was just like, are we really doing a fucking Man from Uncle movie? I think that's just what that got stuck with. Like, but it's a better movie than this. And and then yeah, and then
I
it's
don't
just
agree.
and then just Akiva Goldsman just is like the thing. He like I'll never know, but it just considering that all the problems I'm talking about with this movie extend to the other 2 movies he did that year that also featured the Legend of King Arthur, I have to believe that a lot of this is his fault. Um, and then he almost immediately like abandons whatever the fuck he was supposed to be doing in those worlds and was in Star Trek world for a little bit, and now he seems to not even be there anymore.
No.
Um,
Well,
so
streamers are starting to shutter quietly, so
yeah,
I don't think there's space for him there anymore.
yeah. So
Which, on
uh,
its own level, is disappointing because that's a lot of other jobs too,
it's a lot
but
of
not just
jobs, and
him.
he'll
No.
he'll that fucking cockroach will find another place. But
Jesus, I'm not gonna
hey,
call him that.
I'm just saying that's how the system works, man. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, this ends up being a frustrating and boring movie. I wish I had better things to say because the stuff I do like in it, I really do like. But goddamn, does it just not come together? Uh, and I could think of the stuff to cut to at least make this 90 minutes, and they didn't even do that. But
I would just trim the first like 5 to 10 minutes. I would just do
like,
that.
and this is nothing against Jude Law. I would cut most of Jude Law's stuff just because it's not as interesting. Like they should
Well,
like
it's very disconnected, but you also do kind of need it for that character, because otherwise it's just
it, this
pure
is
mustache twirling.
this is the problem with it being a superhero origin story, and this is a problem with a lot of superhero origin stories, which is that they can sometimes be overcrowded by the villain story because you have to tell the villain simultaneously, right? Like
Hmm.
where it's like I think Batman Begins gets away with it because the villain that's the villain essentially drops out of the movie for the middle chunk of it, right? Like he's at
Hmm.
the start, disappears, we think he's dead, and then he comes back, right? I think that's why it works in Batman Begins. But
Hmm.
I think I mean,
That is a
it's
rare occurrence nowadays.
yeah, and it's like a better version of this where it's like the parallel stories is like Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man movie, but even that's like a little perfunctory. I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever. It's just like a little off compared.
Yeah,
And
I still disagree with that, but I see what you're saying.
and I'm not even saying like they shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying that like that's the best version of it, is
Mm.
and it's still kind of like sometimes it hurts to give they struggle to give Spider-Man room to breathe because he has to have the big dumb battle at the end, and it's like
It's clear Alvin Sargent didn't write that one.
yeah.
That's what that
um
is.
well, I mean he did do uncredited rewrites on all of them, but he wasn't a primary driving force. um
Well, he comes in at like the tail end of that one.
yeah. But whatever, it's not the worst thing ever. um and I think King Arthur Legend of the Sword um maybe would have been better without that kind of villain in the background. Like if it had just been like a street level villain, who is maybe incorporating some evil magic shit. If they just done something simpler, I think that would have been a better origin story. And maybe you could have had a more subtle ending where they all sit down at a table at a pub and it's like the Round Table, but they're not. None of them are knights or kings yet, right? Like I think that would have been a little more fun. And just saying, to pick the bad spot to start the story, pick the bad spot to end it.
I,
Um,
here's the thing. I just disagree with that approach to this movie. I do want to see that movie though that you just pitched.
because it'd be a better movie.
I do want to see that version. I didn't say that. I'm just saying I want to see that as well.
It'd be a
Like,
significantly better movie. But
I don't know. Like, look, I'll be honest. Like, this has stuff that I should like just be bouncing off of, and for some reason, it clicks for me. There's
whole like
that
middle thing where they're in like the Darklands or something like that. Like
yeah. There's a whole like fantasy world that they jump to like.
Hated that. That was awful.
Really? Oh no! I want a whole movie in there.
That was one of. Well, yes, you could do a whole movie there. You can't just drop that in for 10 minutes and be like, this is engaging, right? And I'm like, what the fuck happened to the fucking sex workers? Like, what? You set up all this shit in the first half of this movie that was actually interesting, got all these balls rolling, and then you're like, what if we got 7 more balls rolling and we forgot about the other ones? Which is what this movie does every 5 minutes for the first half of it.
Well, look, because this is the fantasy version of the myth, Arthur has to like be shown elements of his life that he is not willing to confront, right? So that's just their excuse to like jumpstart it. It's the fantasy version of like, hey, like slap in the face, you know? Instead of a slap in the face, he's fighting like giant bats and seeing a giant snake and shit.
Yeah,
and,
there was no other way to incorporate
lady in the
that
lake
into the narrative. There was no other way they could have, integrated something like that. It would have been too difficult.
You're making an expensive movie. I want to see that shit up on the screen.
You could have done it, but you can't pull the fucking handbrake on the car, park it, and then be like, "Oh, look over there. There's them Darklands. Go walk over there for a minute, then we can get back in the car." Then you get back and you're like, "Wait, this isn't even the car. We're gonna just shut up. Just shut up. I'll take you to the fucking just shut up and get in the car."
No, it's the same car.
No,
they're just cleaning it up a little bit.
No.
I love that his
got out of
his
a fucking
uncle is the
got out of a
is like
Porsche
this weird
and it came
nightmare.
back and it was a Hyundai. It was fucking. It's just.
I like the Mortal Kombat finale a lot too.
And where the fuck is Merlin? Idiotic.
I mean, again, Lancelot's not even in this one, so...
Well, Lancelot you can say, because Lancelot is usually off doing his own fucking thing in a lot of adventures. He's like, I'm fucking every woman on the planet, like... Yeah, and I'm feeling bad about it, because I'm a Christian, but I'm still doing it. Like, it's a lot of that. So, like, Lancelot, you totally could have saved him for the sequel, being, like, coming in, just being, like, fucking, like, who the fuck is this pretty boy? They could have, like, hated each other at the start, but then they become buddies. Do a buddy cop movie with Arthur and Lancelot. Like, that would have been a perfect...
Oh, no, that's clearly the angle.
That would have been a perfect sequel to this. Like, I don't mind that Lancelot's not here, but Merlin kind of... Merlin's a little more important to the origin of King Arthur, you know?
All right. Well, look, here's the last thing then. I'm sorry that this movie didn't win you over. I love it so much. I think it's a fucking hoot and a holler. I think part of the reason why I like Guy Ritchie as a filmmaker too is that he kind of doesn't. He's not gonna put up with like the Hollywood like interview circuit bullshit. You can tell when he's having a good time, and you can tell when he's being interviewed by David Spade on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and he is just not connecting. He's bouncing off of everything, and it is the most awkward thing in the world. But then he'll fucking lock in for like this interview with this Irish interviewer that for King Arthur specifically. I'll link it below and I'll share it with you too, because these dudes just like hit it off to the point where like he does that one thing that sometimes celebrities do where they're like, we're having a good time, like it's fine, give him a couple more minutes, like we're good. And he's talking about like why he took the King Arthur job and like his admiration of like Irish folk songs and like myth and like his frequency as a filmmaker. And like just like how he finds like certain story wavelengths and like what he vibes with, and like it's like 7 minutes. It's like really fascinating, and I've never heard him that engaged in any other interview ever. And I'm not gonna watch the Joe Rogan one, so I don't know if that counts. But
yeah, who knows?
I don't know. I just I'm a fan of his.
There's no part of me that's like he phoned it in. I don't believe that at all. Like I
Yeah.
have no complaint about like a Guy Ritchie King Arthur movie. Like, there's no part of me that's like Guy Ritchie was the wrong choice, bad take. I honestly want it to be more of a Guy Ritchie movie, I guess is my point. And
Hmm.
he's very hit and miss, in my opinion, when it comes to the straight fantasy stuff. Like, some stuff is like really cool, some stuff is kind of like not as engaging. But like again, you mentioned reshoots. There's definitely like a very like there's he's very the spatial geography of the opening of this movie is very bad. Um, like in terms of following, like it took me a minute to realize that like the warlocks are supposed to be on the backs of those elephants firing,
Hmm.
right? And like there's a couple of like there's just and then when you're in the middle and there's there's that long chase scene where like some of it's good and then some of it just kind of fucking sucks. And then like I don't know, like there's a
Oh my god, I
weird
love that stuff.
there's a lot of great ideas for stuff in here. And I wish he had just maybe he needed like like some more support, more room, like in a better era. Studio wouldn't have been like you have to hit X release date by this point because we're setting up 17 other films to follow. So we can let you breathe a little bit and like rework this part that doesn't totally work. Um, keep Akiva Goldsman as far away as possible. Uh, and but but I don't know. Like I said, I wish it had worked. Uh, I would totally see do a you know though I don't know if we really need another King Arthur movie. Like I know you're like keep doing it, but I'm also like just take the parts from it that you like and write your own fantasy adventure, you know?
I mean,
Um
ideally,
there
yes,
will
yes, as
be
well.
there will be a movie coming up soon that we're doing that is basically like got Merlin and young Arthur in it in all but name, and it works better because it's its own story, right? So we got stuff like that that I would much rather see. I mean, and hey, I keep pitching it to you, but fucking the Dunkin' Egg stories are a lot of stuff like this, where it's
Hmm.
like, uh, that's why Aegon the Fifth was a better king. And also, we know the history of Game of Thrones, so we know that much like Arthur, his attempt to make a perfect kingdom ultimately fails, which is another important part of the Arthur myth, which I think is something the studio would have struggled with eventually, is that Arthur, the Arthurian legend has to end with Camelot crumbling, right? Like that's how all the
Hmm.
Arthur stories end. So it's you know it's something to just let's get some more original stories in there, maybe.
No,
Um,
I agree, and I think you're dead on about like a studio would be like, well, Camelot is what it's about. Like, you can't have it be sad and have it end. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, because then I immediately my brain just jumped to the end of Frozen 2, where the original ending of that movie is like, what's the kingdom Arendelle or whatever
Mhm.
gets like destroyed because you find out like, oh, they like kicked out the original inhabitants of that region, and it's like a colonization story, and it's like trying to reconcile that, and it's like. And then the movie ends up being like, no, we don't need to destroy it. We just all need to live together. And it's like, well, it's like stands for a pretty gross thing. So maybe you should have just knocked down a couple buildings at least,
Ah,
Like, there needs to be some sense of catharsis there.
yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, you're probably right about that.
Well, yeah,
But,
we got too many comforting centrist myths happening right now. I mean, but that's what
mm-hmm,
Arthur has always been. It's just that what that centrism is constantly shifting. So that's another challenge with Arthur. That's why like Miss of Avalon was kind of interesting when I read it, and like I said, it's hard to because it is trying to kind of be like a sort of deconstruction of the Arthurian myth by just kind of elevating the women of the story. Um, but yeah, that's a hard one to recommend these days. Uh, and yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Well, though the Green Knight is like however many years, and the Green Knight has really grown on me as a movie. Like
oh yeah, I
I
love that movie.
liked it when I saw it, and now I'm kind of like, what, the Green Knight's actually kind of fucking great. Um, so I don't know. That's another guy with an interesting. David Lowery, who similarly jumped from an Arthurian story to a Disney film that was just terrible. Um, is
Oh, I
Peter Pan.
didn't see it.
It's pretty bad. It's a shame.
Aww.
Um, his style just doesn't work with what that movie requires and what Disney requires, right? So,
Hmm.
um, yeah,
That's
kind
too
of,
bad.
it's a shame. It's a shame. Um, but also, I think maybe Peter Pan is another character we can maybe stop telling stories about. There's a couple.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
a
I
couple.
know some people even try to like reinterpret, like, oh, he's a villain because he's keeping kids trapped
Mm,
there forever, and it's like even that I feel like that got tired pretty fast. I'm not even against that idea.
mm.
It's just like, no, okay, you
Well,
covered all the
Peter Pan
bases, you
is
know.
not meant to be an aspirational character, right? Like, there's
Hmm.
like it's bad that he never grew up. Like
Yeah.
like how like the original story Peter Pan ends with Tinkerbell dying, but Peter Pan doesn't even remember Tinkerbell because he's perpetually stuck as a
Hmm.
child, so like he doesn't understand like he can't grasp death and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
like when Tinkerbell dies, like Tinkerbell he just forgets about her. And it's like this grim thing of being like, oh yeah, not growing up is actually a really bad thing.
Hmm.
Like it's actually very, very bad to never grow up. And then like so many adaptations of Peter Pan are like, isn't it great to be a child forever? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's that classic fucking interpretation bullshit, or like poor interpretation rather, where like they look at like old quote unquote problematic elements from like memory of stuff. You know, it's like so many Disney adaptations, especially they look back at like, oh, like the women were just like damsels in distress. And it's like, not that those weren't problems with
yeah,
cinema back then and like stories, but like there tends to be more going on with the female characters, considering they're the protagonists of so many of
yeah,
those stories, right? And
yeah.
but then they'll hand wring so much and like retroactively react to elements that aren't even in the original material
Hmm.
and make it worse. You know, it's
Hmm.
like Belle in the Beauty and the Beast remake, the last remake I saw, is like a
Hmm.
disaster of a character,
Yeah,
like on the page. Like,
that's probably the most disastrous one, probably because what they are reacting to flaws that straight up don't exist in that one. Like a
yeah,
lot, like a lot of Disney stuff has aged weird. The big flaw that
yeah, totally, totally.
the big flaw of Beauty and the Beast one is that everyone gets to the end of everyone gets to the end of that movie when he turns human and they're kind of like, I don't like the Beast better for some reason. Like he kind of looks goofy as a person. Like that's the hurdle people seem to not be able to get over. But uh but yeah, that's a weird one to just be like, yeah, that's the one that really needs updating is Beauty and the Beast. And I yeah, that's a truly baffling one. Which we will never talk about on this podcast.
It's for the best.
Hey, hey.
I'm just shuffling away the list
Although
right
like
now. Just
what is like what again, I go back to Fox Robin Hood where I'm like, that's the one I do. But like, what Disney story could use like an update? Like if they did it right, you know what I'm saying? Um,
a recency bias,
mm,
but Atlantis. I think it's so close to being like fucking great. I think it's
yeah,
it's pretty good. It needs, I keep calling it like, it needs like the Pandora element,
mm,
because they get to Atlantis and they're like, oh, this is cool, and then immediately the villainous turns happens. No, 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 no. You need like 30 to 45 minutes of them just hanging out, and like the conflict between like the private military guys and the engineers and the indigenous peoples, and then you build up to that big finale. You can't just like do that twist
yeah. It
immediately,
feels like
you
there's
know.
one or two sequences missing in the middle of Atlantis. Like that's always
Yeah,
like
it's so close.
I
It's
feel
so
like
close.
I feel similar like where it's like yeah they don't spend enough time in Atlantis, and I also think they get to Atlantis a little too quickly between the submarine crashing, right? Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I mean, it's a 95-minute movie. It
yeah,
should
yeah,
be a
it's
125-minute movie.
yeah, yeah. So that's always a challenge. Thank God they're doing Lilo and Stitch live action though. Um,
I don't claim that. Oh, Lilo and Stitch is also in my top 5, by the
Lilo
way.
and Stitch
That's a
is
great
pretty.
movie.
Yeah, Lilo and Stitch is a great one. Um,
Yeah. It's
but
just fucking so sad.
yeah, um, but it's a good movie. Maybe Princess and the Frog because that's like another deeply flawed one. Like that's another like it's a little too early to do a live action Princess and the Frog, but
Hmm.
uh That's a movie that's got like that's another like they got 17 elements in it. I do like that the one thing that like everyone kind of came with away though is that like Dr. Facilier is like the best Disney villain of the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Has there even been
What's that one
anyone
song?
has there been anyone close in terms of like a Disney villain? Because Disney used to be known for their fucking villains. And
God, I don't. Let me see. Who would be close? I mean, when they first did the surprise twist thing with Frozen,
mm,
they got hooked on that, and now they don't do villains anymore.
yeah.
Um, no, I don't think anyone
Yeah, like there's
really
none that are
really
like
gets there. No one's allowed to get there anymore.
yeah, none of them are fun. Um
Yeah, like the closest one they get, and they're only in one sequence of the film, is the fucking crab in Tamatoa in
oh
Moana.
yeah.
He gets a song and everything. You're like, oh, this is great, and he's like, oh right, this is a minor villain in the movie,
Yeah, there's no major villain of
which
that
is the one
movie.
flaw of that film. That's the one flaw I have with that.
Coco's one of the better Pixar. Oh, it turns out that guy's actually the villain the whole time. Villains. I do like the Coco villain.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's right. He's kind of fun.
Yeah, because he's got like a personality before you meet him, like, and
Hmm.
I like that he's genuinely going to help the kid until he realizes who the kid really is. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
and then that adds like a really scary element to it
yeah,
because it's
like
like,
when
no,
the
he
shift
he he could
happens.
like just be that good guy.
Yeah, like it's Coco. There's a good movie from 2017. Um,
Hey, it
uh,
is.
uh,
It's just, yeah,
the movie
it's a
Disney was
great
afraid
movie.
wouldn't make money after Trump got elected because it
That's
was
so
an
stupid.
all Latin cast. Um,
That's probably why it made money, frankly.
I mean, also like they're kind of doing that with the gay stuff right now, and like got to make our stuff seem less gay,
I
because
know, and it's
there's
like, no, no, no. People need it now more
yeah,
than ever.
people
That's
need it now
why. That's
more
why you
than
do that.
ever, and it's also will make it like the all that shit's astroturf, you morons. Like, how do you not know how astroturfing works? Um,
Yeah, damn.
but
I'm looking at. There's no fucking fun Disney villains anymore.
no, like
It's,
that's been a
it's not
big.
that they're not good villains.
Mhm,
It's that they're not fun, which is
yeah,
fine. But it's like nothing's allowed to be fun anymore.
yeah,
Nothing.
yeah.
I didn't see Wish, so maybe Chris Pine in that is like surprisingly really fun.
Oh well, everyone likes fucking Bruno. We don't talk about
Uh,
Bruno.
yeah, I know. They're wrong.
Mm,
That's you don't. I don't even remember the rhythms of the song. Go back to Guy Ritchie's frequencies. I can't. I don't have a frequency on that movie. I have
mm,
nothing. I cannot remember the cadence in which they sing the song "We Don't Talk About Bruno,"
mm.
and I forget about it until someone else brings it up to me. I'm sorry. It's a bad movie. But that's okay
You're
because there are
allowed.
plenty of white people bad movies.
Yeah, you're allowed to say that because I will get shot because
Yeah,
people
no, you
online
will. Yeah.
are very passionate about that movie. Not. I'm not saying not the Latin audience of that film. I'm talking more about the Lin-Manuel Miranda stands for whatever fucking reason.
Oh, okay.
Like they seem to be the ones that get really vicious about it, and then
Oh, well,
they use the progressive angle to try and be like, no, you're attacking the film for. And I'm like, no, I'm attacking because the songs fucking suck.
Yeah.
under
Yeah, bring
under the
back fun Disney villains.
yeah, and then it's like they do the live action ones, and then they make the villains less fun in those too. Like Scar
Yeah.
fucking sucked in the fucking Lion King movie, and then they gave fucking Gaston like weird PTSD shit in the live action one.
Yeah, and
Like,
that's not fun.
yeah,
that's,
it's
that's
not.
heavy.
No, it's not fun at all. And then it's like we're gonna make the gay thing like text as opposed to subtext, and it's like why? Like who gives a shit? Like like and he makes Scar boring.
I don't know cuz it's not the actor. That was Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah. Um.
Who's great, so no excuse. They have no fucking excuse. John Favreau.
Yeah. I'm looking at like the fucking Disney live action is dire. Um,
Yeah, there's no reason to watch those anymore.
the Snow White one. I mean, that trailer.
We gotta get Rachel Zegler out of there.
Yeah, we got well, also Greta Gerwig did that script. Like,
Oh, what the fuck?
yeah, it was like it's one of those where like after Maleficent hit, they brought in like a genuinely bunch of interesting people to try to develop these things, and then slowly chipped away at them. And Greta Gerwig is one of those where like she was working on a version that just didn't get made. Like,
Okay, okay, I think that's
and
scared the shit out of me.
but like it's her name. Her name's still on the script.
She probably did just enough work, like
Well,
but
is Gal Gadot? Yeah, Gal Gadot's still in that, isn't she? Good timing.
uh-huh. I
Um,
know, yeah.
good timing on everything for that movie.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like they made a big deal about her being, Snow White because people are racist,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like and then they just try to make her look as much like her like they try to make it look as much like the cartoon as possible. Like it's so what the fuck are you doing? Why are you even here?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, like that is just maybe the single most misguided thing like they've done in a long time.
Mhm.
In a history of recent big misguided things they've done.
The, fi-
Apologies to Mark
the
Webb,
film
who I guess
elicited,
will just never get the chance to direct a real movie
yeah,
again.
the film elicited pre-release controversies. The criticism leveled against Ziegler's public disapproval of the original film, story changes, colorblind casting, actors without dwarfism playing original dwarf characters who were abruptly replaced with CGI models of the original 1937 dwarfs, as well as Ziegler and Godot's opposing stances on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. God damn, what a fucking cursed movie! Holy shit! Oh my god. Oh God. What a
We got to get her
fucking
out of there.
ah what the
Yeah, that's
fuck?
fucking
That was
crazy.
I almost had a heart attack, dude. Like ah, just wow. And it's like with
Yeah.
all those problems they'll blame the women.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It'll be
uh
because she's pro-Palestine
yeah.
and Gal Gadot was innocent, even though
Yeah.
she was in the IDF.
Mm, and-
Thanks, Zack Snyder.
yeah, I was about to bring that up. We give that guy too much of a pass on that one.
I kind of have. I apologize for that. I'm not even a hater of him. I'm just like, hey,
And
dude,
no
what the
offense,
fuck?
he cast her when he found out she was that she was a soldier at one point. Like I'm not saying he's pro Israel. I'm just saying that he was like, well, of course an actual soldier should play Wonder Woman. What's better than that?
Yeah, it's a little of the Michael Bay thing of like, I just love the troops, and it's like
Yeah,
this. The thought stops there,
yeah.
for
That's
better and worse.
Snyder kind of has that, unfortunately. At least that's what I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt now. Now he could say something
I,
insane
I, yeah,
in
I
the
am
next.
too. But at least Michael Bay knows to hire a cinematographer to shoot his own movies. Anyways, King
Oh, dude,
Arthur,
shots
Legend of the
fired!
Sword.
Shots fired! Who did the
I
cinematography for this
wouldn't.
fucking thing?
Oh, you
Um,
know what? I think is really good.
um,
John
oh,
Matheson.
yeah, who did Gladiator?
Yep.
um,
There you
all
go.
right, that explains some things. Uh,
And
whatever.
Doctor Strange too.
Yeah, I mean, no,
Oh,
he's
he did Logan the same year.
yeah. No, he's not a bad cinematographer. I noticed I did not complain about the cinematography while talking about this.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. It's a very good looking movie, and there's a lot of like gray, and I think it's proof that like you can like it's not the colors.
Yeah, you
It's
can do
like the
gray
lighting and the
well.
structure and the
Yeah.
palette. Yeah, there's layered imagery. It's like I should not like this movie. It is the best version of stuff I should not like for me.
Hmm.
That is what I walk away with here.
That might be true for me too, but it still doesn't give it above a 2.5 star for me.
Okay. Well, I gave it
So
5 stars on Letterboxd.
yeah,
Anyways, Matt, thanks for
that's
joining me. Sorry you didn't
I,
like this one more.
I gotta say, like, look, whatever you like the movie, that's kind of insane to give this 5 stars. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I think Guy Ritchie's made like at least 5 movies better than this. Like, you can't not say that. Like,
Let me see. Rock and Roll is my favorite.
Yeah,
Let me
same.
see what else.
I do
Probably.
Rock and Rolla, Snatch, the first Sherlock Holmes, Man from Uncle, Wrath of Man. So there's 5 right there.
Fuck, Wrath of Man's probably his best one.
I think those 5 are
Wrath
better
of
than King Arthur.
Man, Wrath of Man, Rock and Roll, and then I think King Arthur's my like it's up there. That's a top 3 for me.
All right, I like that. I like your
That's
Sherlock
yeah.
Holmes way more.
I like both of his Sherlock Holmes a lot.
I don't like the second
I
one. But
I
although
think I got too
I
high
do,
on the BBC Sherlock for a bit,
I
which is
do
still
like
fun, but you
I
know.
I do like the showdown between Moriarty and Holmes at the end, where they detect each other's punches before they
Hmm.
happen. That's a great, like, that is such a smart dumb decision. Like, that is like so dumb it comes around to being brilliant. Which but I don't know, Sherlock Holmes works. His Sherlock Holmes is like really good, I think.
Yeah,
The first one. Um
I agree. I
but
agree.
I guess that's where,
Oh, and I like The Covenant and Man from Uncle quite a bit.
I have not
I
seen The
don't know if
Covenant yet. Um and I haven't seen the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which
I
is that
want to
the
see it. I've heard very mixed stuff about it,
is that the
but I want to see
Russian
it.
one? Is that the one where like the Russian war fucked it all up? Like,
No, that was Operation
oh,
Fortune.
Operation, yeah, Fortune.
Yeah, which I did have a good time with, but like you
Bad
could tell that
timing.
like they wanted a vacation when
Yeah,
they made that movie. You
that's
know what I
fine.
mean?
I'd
Which
like to
yeah,
pay.
totally fine.
I'd like a paid vacation too.
Yeah, I'm
Henry
not blaming
Cavill is ends up being an okay person. Because he's been in
them.
some movies I like, and I would like to see him make. Well, I want that Highlander movie to be good. Um,
Hey, if
if
it's Chad Stahelski and they let him work, it could
yeah,
be good.
but he had to go back and do ballerina or whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah, he had to do the action reshoots on that.
Um, Goddamn.
I'm sure that's fine.
Yeah, movie will be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, I'm not even joking. I'm sure the movie will be fine now. It just won't be like
Yeah.
good. Like,
Yeah. It won't be great. It won't
yeah,
be.
it'll be like
It
John
won't
Wick.
be John Wick's.
It'll be like John Wick 1, where you're like, that was good. Like, you watched it, you like don't really know what it's gonna be. You're like, it's good, and
Yeah.
then maybe some sequels will help things, and getting a director who actually knows what they're doing.
Oh. Well, I think that first John Wick's great, but
No, I
I
do
was
too.
thinking more like
But
Atomic
when you
Blonde,
but
which is
when
like
you
this is pretty good.
but when you walk out of John Wick the first time, you're like, it's pretty good. Like, you're not ready for it to be like John Wick is going to be this totemic thing that sticks around.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or now, like everyone wants to be John Wick, and you're like, wait. That worked because it was Keanu
yeah, worked as it was Keanu, and it had
and
directors
his
that actually
team.
knew how to shoot action. And
Yeah.
no, I do like that.
Yeah. It's
Like,
like no. Hitmen aren't that inherently
yeah,
interesting.
it's not the Hitman thing. Like the hit, like that's just how you facilitate the action. Like, it's the vehicle. It's not the actual
Yeah.
it's not the actual substance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but hey,
Oh, Guy Ritchie could do a John Wick spinoff. You get Guy Ritchie to do a John Wick spinoff, I'm there.
it'd have to be some British asshole though. Who's the British
Oh
equivalent
yeah.
of Keanu?
No, you know what? It doesn't. They don't have to be British. They just have to put on an accent.
Yeah, but I'd like them to pick a British person. Uh,
Is Tom
no.
Hardy British? Let me see.
Um,
Yes, he's from the United Kingdom. He's from London.
you know what? Just bring Scott Adkins in. Like,
There
because
you go.
you just
Yeah,
don't put him under like fat makeup, so then he's just Scott Adkins. Like,
yeah, I'll take it.
yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
What we did not make enough of a stink for him not getting an Academy Award nomination for John Wick Chapter 4.
I know.
It was the best performance in like 20. There's where the fucking like Disney villain energy is gone. It's in fucking John Wick. There's like 17 guys that have that like vibe where you're like, this guy fucking sucks and I love it. He's like so happy he's a piece of shit. Like there's no redeeming qualities in him. Like there isn't like I have to be tough. This is a tough business. He's like I can't wait to kill more people. Like that's what cinema is fucking missing. God damn it.
Yeah. Bring that back. Do a sequel to King Arthur and then have a really fun villain.
Yeah.
For Arthur and Lancelot to bounce off of.
Yeah.
There you go.
Get some
In
get
the
some like
Darklands.
get some like homoerotic subtext between the two. You can carry that over from the Sherlock films, you know?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely, yeah.
That ain't happening now.
Comrade Guy Ritchie?
We're not going that far.
Yeah, no. Had to give it a shot. Matt, thanks for joining me.
I think Guy Ritchie is someone where like he doesn't realize like that his movies endorse conservative things. I'm gonna go on a limb like that. I'm gonna say that he's a fairly centrist person, but doesn't realize that his movies can at times tip into conservative beliefs. Right? That's the vibe I get at least, which is a lot of directors.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time, what are we talking about next time? Oh shit! Do you know what we're talking about next time?
I believe we were talking about The Keep.
Yes.
Or the other one.
Or no, is it? I think it is The Last Witch Hunter.
All right, The Last Witch Hunter. Either way,
forgot to switch the order.
If these episodes get out on time, those will double as our Halloween episodes because they're two horror movies technically. Wow. So we're either doing The Last Witch Hunter or The Keep next.
Yeah. I think we could do Last Witch Hunter, and then The Keep could be for Halloween.
So, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we could do that. All right, Last Witch Hunter next, then, and then The Keep. So there's the next 2 episodes. Go watch those movies and come back. I guess there's like a 35mm scan of The Keep floating around the internet somewhere. So if you're interested, watch it that way.
Yeah, if you're interested, know our friend Abby, and you'll be able to watch it.
Oh, okay. Interested. I didn't know they had it as well.
I think Abby has it.
Abby, are you listening to this? Abby, do you have it?
Abby doesn't.
Abby
doesn't listen to the fucking podcast.
Abby has stuff to do.
Abby's very nice, but she's got a busy life, and she can only tolerate my annoying opinions so much. So she ain't listening.
Well,
but
thank you, Abby, for the hookup. Potentially, for Matt. And
fucker on Letterboxd just gave Old Boy 3.5 stars. You fucking coward! I'll fucking find you.
Do you just have the Old Boy Letterboxd tab open all the time?
No,
and you're like, what are the people saying about it?
Literally, I just opened up. I just opened Letterboxd, and it was just the first thing I saw. So.
Oh, okay. Well, all I see is Inside Out 2, The Substance, and Megalopolis reactions.
So I heard The Substance was the worst thing ever made by anyone ever.
I heard that too. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's a woman directing it.
Hey.
A very talented filmmaker who made Revenge, a movie I thought we all agreed was fucking awesome. But hey, what do I know? I'll check out The Substance next week. And next week, Last Witch Hunter. Matt, thanks for joining me. Links down to all of our stuff below. Like and subscribe. Check out our Patreon. I'm doing Lost retrospectives now, just written episode stuff as I make my way through the series again, so we don't have to do a whole podcast about it, and Matt will ignore my text to do it, and I don't have to get guests for it. So I'm just reacting to it, responding to stuff that I think aged well or aged poorly, and maybe getting a little sad that some character stuff doesn't necessarily fill me with a whole bunch of confidence knowing where they end up. But I'm sorting out my feelings. It's fine. It's my favorite show, so I'm allowed to have strong reactions. For this, thanks anyways for listening. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. If you didn't like this, like and subscribe anyways, because you might find something you do like.
Wait. Look, I don't want to come down on you too hard, because I have not finished the show.
Okay.
Lost is your favorite show.
Lost is my favorite show.
Which shows haven't you seen?
You're gonna have to list them off. I'm not. I've seen. I
Like,
haven't finished Columbo. I know that.
all
I
right,
haven't
so
finished
there's
Columbo.
Columbo, but I get it. That's a '70s show. Right? Have you seen The Sopranos?
I've seen The Sopranos. I've seen The Wire. I went through that phase where I was like top 10 TV shows in IMDb and got hooked. I was there in the early days of Breaking Bad. Seen Breaking Bad.
Seen Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, yes. Banger. I would agree with your assessment that it is better than Breaking Bad.
Although I did do a Breaking Bad rewatch recently, and it's actually
fucking
better.
great, right?
It's better than I remember it. Better than I remember it. So, so Lost trumps all those.
It is my favorite. I don't. It is too essential for me to not consider it my favorite. It is the reason I love television.
Are we supposed to love...
That's the first one to unlock it.
Are we supposed to love television, though?
I don't know. That's a bigger question.
Like, I understand loving movies. I don't know if television is something that you love.
I love TV shows. How about that?
I do.
Television
I do too.
shows.
Yeah, I do too.
I love television shows. If I need to get more specific,
but you don't like Star Trek: The Next Generation. Not as good as Lost.
That's tough. It's up there. I think Deep Space Nine is probably better than Lost.
Okay.
But I love Lost the most out of all of them.
I can live with that. Maybe we should do
Deep
a
Space
Lost...
Nine is the best one.
Maybe we should do a Lost podcast.
Maybe.
Because I can't force myself to stick with it when I try to do it on my own. And maybe there is a communal aspect to Lost that I am missing.
Maybe.
But it would have to be...
That's like 120 episodes.
Yeah, but it would also... It would have to be... like, if we talked about it, you would have to be able to talk about it with me without giving shit away, I guess. So, since you know the show and I don't. But...
I'm trying to avoid that also in the write-ups. Like, I'm reacting to the episodes in front of me as they come. So, like, for the pilot, for example, at time recording, that's the only one that's available. By the time this episode comes out, there'll be more episodes reactions available. Yeah. But, like the pilot, it's like, I can see how they just straight up did not know where stuff was going. And it makes it all the more impressive that they land that plane. You know what I mean? And it's just very interesting to watch it like in a bubble, like what you always say about like Alien. Like I have to like look at that movie individually. Don't look at the franchise. Look at that movie individually. What that's saying, the sequences, the horror elements, the cosmic horror elements, especially like that is irrelevant to other movies that have existed in its aftermath. I think Lost is a little similar, which is maybe. It becomes a problem around the third season, and then they start getting the train on track when they're like, okay, no, we have to end this. And I am someone who thinks it wraps up beautifully. Okay. It would be a bummer if I finished it and I was like, no, actually, I think that's a bad ending now, guys. You know?
Yeah. Well, actually,
you never know.
I technically know the ending, but I also don't know it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can describe that ending, but if I don't know the vibe of the show, I can't tell you if that's actually a good ending or not, right?
Yeah.
Like it might fit perfectly. But yeah, I don't know. None of Lindelof stuff has ever hit for me, I don't think. But we can maybe one day we'll test those waters.
Yeah, maybe one day.
How many episodes?
That would have to be the whole
How many
thing.
episodes is Lost?
121. But some of them are like a lot of them are basically the same episode just split into two production things. So like the pilot is technically 2 episodes. It's produced as one, and it's you do yourself a disservice if you just stop in the middle of that. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every season finale is 2 parts, like that stuff, you know.
Well, Yu Yu Hakusho is 112 episodes long.
Oh, okay.
So We could combine the two somehow.
Hmm. Yu Yu Hakusho versus Lost.
Yeah, I know who's winning easily in that instance, but hey,
I,
uh,
and I don't, so
mhm.
we will see.
Yeah, you would like Yu Yu Hakusho.
I'm
Uh,
gonna watch it
yeah,
eventually.
yeah, it's a good show.
I guess maybe now it's just waiting to see when I should watch it.
Um, I'd watch it if you need to distract yourself throughout the month of October.
Okay, well, let's see. I want to do a lot of Halloween stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's demon themed.
Oh
Like,
shit.
yeah, it. I mean, it basically starts as a demon hunting show. So uh, there's a lot of horror influences in Yu Yu Hakusho, which is why I strongly recommend it to
That is the
everyone.
first I fucking heard of that. How is that not the thing people tell me about immediately with that
It,
show?
I feel like I must have said something. There's no way I didn't let slip that Karama's a fox demon.
No, I know the Foxman thing.
Yeah,
I remember the ears,
yeah. Well, he only gets him when
but
his demon form comes out.
oh, okay.
Because he's actually, you see, he was a demon. He was a renowned thief. See, this is why the story's so cool. He was like a demon fox thief, but he got injured during an escape, and he had to hide out in the human world. And in order to recover, he had to incubate in a human body. So he fused with an unborn human baby and was born as a half human, half demon. But being half human, half demon, he ended up developing feelings for his human mother, which he never had when he was a demon. So now he's torn between his allegiances to the two worlds.
Okay.
And when Yusuke is sent to hunt him down, he has to learn about like the ambiguity that goes on, where it's like, oh, not all demons are bad. Like it's there's complications to it.
Oh,
Maybe I've been.
like Angel and Buffy.
I mean, I don't know. I've never seen that show. Um,
Okay.
is Angel about someone who was tricked into being a cop?
No.
Yu Hakusho is really it's about demon hunting, but it's about a kid who was tricked into becoming a cop,
Oh, okay.
and he's not happy about it. So. It's good. It's great. It's so good.
All right.
Watch
All
it.
right. All right.
Watch it.
Well, okay. I
Watch
will.
you
Okay.
fucking get off this fucking podcast. English dub is good. You can watch the English dub. I recommend it. English dub, good. It's on Hulu. Go watch it. Actually, it might not be on Hulu anymore, but it was on Netflix. It's always moving, always grooving. um, but
Goodbye, everyone.
it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. Go watch it.
All
It's on
right.
Netflix.
Okay. Okay. Well, after I watch Lost.
Yeah. See, I've been like sending Diego like recommendations for like shows, like other fantasy adjacent things that he hasn't seen. Maybe when he fucking sees this shit, he'll understand why I think King Arthur: Legend of the Sword is so underwhelming. Because
No, no, it's still good.
I've seen other
They can be
fucking
separately good.
Diego's fantasy diet is fucking piss poor. So gotta work on that.
Okay. Well, you haven't seen City of Lost Children, so I don't think you could talk.
So I've seen it once. I have not seen
Okay.
it since I've seen it though. And I asked you,
All right. All
hey,
right.
what version of home video should I get of City of Lost Children? And you never responded. So I still have not ordered a copy of City of Lost Children.
No, actually, I'm pretty sure I said Blu-ray.
You didn't know we only ended up talking about the version of Legend. Oh, spoilers, we're doing both of those movies.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right. Well, there you go. There's 4 movies you could watch ahead of time.
Yeah.
So until then, goodbye, everyone. Goodbye,
Goodbye.
Jonathan Demme.
Goodbye, Judy Foster.
Goodbye, Guy Ritchie.